Hello everyone, SimsEclaire here and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video we are kind of switching things up. I mean, not really. We're still doing the horror house series, but this one is not a family home. I know, it seems like all of these scary movies center around family homes. This one, however, does not. I'm also not 100% sure how scary this movie actually is, although I love this movie. I think it's one of the best movies that have come out, in a while. I mean, it's definitely not, it's been out for a really long time. I think it's been out for at least 5 years, if not even more than that, because I know I was technically not old enough to see it when it came out, but the guy who was checking IDs at the door to go in to see this movie was in my school, and he wasn't even old enough to go see it. He was only a grade above me, so when he saw me there, he was just like, yeah, fine, whatever, and he let me in the door. So that was pretty fun. I remember feeling all scandalous because I got to go see a movie that you were supposed to be 18 or older to go watch, and I think I was like 16 at the time. But anyway, enough beating around the bush. This is the cabin from The Cabin in the Woods. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, I would seriously not finish this video, or as all my other ones have been, just turn off the volume. This one isn't that long. It's only like 19 minutes. But because I am going to talk about this movie, but I'm also going to building this house actually gives clues to how this movie goes. So if you have an interest in seeing this movie, and like I said, it's not that scary, it's almost, I found it comedic, but I also grew up on scary movies, so my version of scary and other people's version of scary is a little different. But if you haven't seen it and you plan on watching it, I would mute this and just play some nice happy music in the background, or some spooky Halloween music to get you in the mood. But right now, the house structure itself came together really quickly. It's literally just this simple cabin, and there are no real exterior pictures of the house except for from the front. But from the movie cover, you can kind of tell that there is like a V-shaped or an A-shaped roof somewhere on the build. So I put mine directly towards the front, because in the scene where you see that front entrance of the house, it does look as though the roof kind of like slopes up and then comes to a point. So that's why I decided to put the A shape a little bit closer to the front. But then the rest of the house is just like this slope downward into nothingness, basically. But this house is also not to scale. I realized as I was building it, I kept having to build more into the house, because I just kept running out of room, because the rooms in this house were so big. But it was bigger on the inside, kind of like the TARDIS, which was so weird to me because it always seemed like such a small, crammed little cottage. And then going through the movie trying to build it, I'm like, oh no, this house is actually pretty big. But, the cabin in the woods, as the name suggests, it is a cabin in the woods, so I'm kind of just filling all the greenery up, trying to make it seem like it's in the woods. And then this clearing-ish thing over there that I built in the back, there is a scene in the movie where one of the couples goes and they have pheromone dust sprayed on them, and then they go out and to have some fun, but then one of the zombies comes up and, interrupts their fun. And that's when kind of all the spookiness starts to happen, when those zombies show up. And so I wanted to draw a little path, because a part of the movie is that there's these people controlling how these campers basically enjoy their vacation, because they're supposed to be sacrifices for something. I'm not going to say exactly what that is, so I won't spoil the entire thing, but they are supposed to be sacrifices for something. So there's these people who are controlling everything, and they take bets on which thing is going to come to life to take care of the sacrifices for them, so that they don't have to do the dirty work. But so that's a little funny scene in the beginning where they're all betting all their money on what spooky scary thing is going to come to life that time, because they do this every year. But the thing that won out for this time was the Buckner family, which is the family that supposedly used to live in this cottage. And I think that they might have actually lived in this cottage, it's a real family. They just keep the zombies around, in check to bring back whenever they need to. But this is where, so backtrack just to finish my thought. The Buckner family comes back after the people go down into the basement, and we will build the basement in just a minute. I actually think that that's the last thing that I build, but we will be building the basement. But basically the whole point is that they choose what is going to be their what is going to be sacrificing them. So the basement has a whole bunch of junk in it, and whatever they play with the most and they call to life is what comes to sacrifice them. So that's kind of the premise of the whole story, but there's a whole team of like techs and whizzes and like stuff like that who control different things around the house to get them to go into the cellar, to get them to pick something, to get them where they need them to be so that the things doing the sacrifices can do their jobs properly. But, so going into here, this is the living room. This is the room you see, besides the basement, this is the room you see the most of in terms of this house. So they do a whole lot. It's a camping trip with a whole bunch of friends, and they all end up doing a little bit of drinking and a little bit of smoking, and they play truth or dare, and they're all sitting here in this living room. So you do get quite a good shot of this living room, so that's why this is probably going to be the most detailed room in the house, this and the kitchen, because you can kind of see as they pan over around the living room for those scenes, you can see where the kitchen is and how the kitchen is set up. Now the kitchen here in the Sims build is a little wonky, and that is because the stairs to the cellar or the basement are supposedly hidden inside, like underneath the floorboards. Like you can't see them, but obviously you can't do that in the Sims. It like creates this gaping hole wherever you put the stairs. So the kitchen had to kind of be resituated around and kind of extended a little bit so that way you couldn't see, or the staircase didn't get in the way of the kitchen. But I'm basically just throwing a whole bunch of clutter around here right now. So as I was looking through the movie and watching it on my phone and like zooming in, there's a whole lot of shelving units and there's a whole bunch of different clutter items around, so I wanted to make sure I represented that. And then also this little werewolf statue here, there is a scene in the movie, there's a stuffed wolf head sitting on the wall where that werewolf is in the movie, and there's a scene where Marty, they're playing truth or dare, and Marty dares Jess, I think is what her name is, to go make out with the wolf head, but Marty is high and not on life, and he calls it a moose. And everyone kind of just stops and stares at him, and they're all like, no, I'm pretty sure that's a wolf. And he's like, the moose over there. And they're all like, no, that's a wolf. And he's like, okay, fine, whatever you all say. And the funniest scene, I think, in the movie is at the beginning, Marty is driving in his car, and it's full of smoke. He's like hotboxing his car, and he rolls down the windows, and he exits his car, and he locks it from the outside, but his windows are down, so anyone could still go in and steal his car. And he has like this giant bong in his hand, and his friend is like, oh, you can't bring that here in my parents' caravan. And then he shrinks the bong down into a coffee mug. It's like a portable coffee mug, and he's like, I would never bring a bong onto your parents' caravan. What are you, stoned? And then he just like hops onto the caravan. And I just thought that was the funniest thing ever, that this large bong just like shrunk itself down into this to-go coffee cup. And that is like your introduction to Marty. He's like my favorite character in this whole movie. But anyway, I had to real quickly fix the living room. You all saw me change the fireplace around because I realized upon closer inspection that the fireplace was definitely taller and a little bit wider than the one I had initially been using. So I did just go ahead and switch that one out. And now we're moving on to the kitchen. So the kitchen I initially set up in a certain way, and then I realized that according to the scene in the movie I was watching, that's actually wrong. So despite the fact that in faraway scenes it definitely looks as though the oven is super close to the right wall, upon going through a scene where one of the girls, I think it's Jess, is dancing through the kitchen, you kind of see that it's actually not like a stove and oven combo at all. It's actually like a countertop stove, and it's much closer to the left side of the kitchen, but obviously we don't have countertop stoves in The Sims 4, so I do end up just using this Parenthood stove and kind of making it the same color as the cabinets just so it blends in. And then I put a boombox there because I think the house came with the speaker, but one of the girls plugs their iPod into it so that they can play some music while they're enjoying their little weekend away. And then there's a whole bunch of random surfaces in this house. Like, I really don't understand. There's a whole bunch of tables everywhere, and weird like chairs in corners, and I never noticed it before. And I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense because this whole house is a stage. Like, this is not a real house. The people who are in charge of making sure the sacrifices happen have built this cottage specifically for this purpose. In fact, there's actually one gas station on the way to this cottage, and they call him the Harbinger. And it's like this really creepy old man, and he's supposed to like scare all of the people who they get to come up to this cabin. He's supposed to scare them into like going up there even more. Like, he's supposed to entice them into going up to this cabin with scary, spooky stories, which to me doesn't really make sense, because even though I love scary movies, if I was heading to a cabin in the woods that I had never been to before, and I go to this gas station in the middle of nowhere, and this old man just comes out like chewing tar and pumping my gas for me, and he just starts telling me all these spooky, scary stories about the cabin I'm about to go visit, you know I'm about to go turn around. Like, I am not sitting there and going back up to that cabin. Like, that is not going to happen. So I'm just like, why do they keep that there? Like, there's going to be someone just like me who's going to turn around. I mean, let me know in the comments down below if that would entice you to go up to the cabin or to turn around, because I know my butt would be turning right around and going back home and renting some cabin not far, far away from everybody else. But anyway, now we're going into the bedroom. So you saw me place the staircase to the basement, but like I said, we are going to decorate that last. But this bedroom that I'm decorating first here is actually Marty's room. So as I said, Marty's kind of the stoner character. They have to have archetypes to sacrifice. That's kind of like the lore. And so according to the archetypes that they have to sacrifice, Marty is technically the fool. And as you can see here, I'm enlarging this book here. It has a goldfish on it. In one of the scenes in the book, Marty is doing his thing. He's smoking and he's reading Finding Nemo, or the little Nemo or something like that, while he's doing his thing. And I just thought that was kind of funny. So when I saw the kids book with the picture of the fish on it, I just thought I had to go ahead and enlarge it and kind of reenact that scene. And then we're going over here and we're just doing a whole bunch of clutter. As I said earlier, there is a whole bunch of chairs just randomly around. So I do add a couple of chairs in different places. And then I think I talked over it, but if you guys caught it, you did see me place some vents in the hallway. That's where all the people control the people staying here with emotions. So like, they put different dust through, like the pheromone dust, to cause different reactions that kind of lead them towards their goal. And then this giant picture here in the movie, it's a very scary picture. Even I don't like it. It's like an animal sacrifice or something. But here I just used some doggies, and it basically blocks this mirror, this two-sided mirror, and one side sees through into the room next door, and then the other side acts as though a mirror. So from this room here in the movie, you can technically see into the room next door, which is rather creepy, but it does kind of lead way to like a hero moment where the guy who's staying in this room kind of crashes through the mirror on the other side to save the damsel in distress. But then this is going to be the other room. So this room has the mirror side on it. So this is just a mirror. You can't see into the other room, but from the other side of the wall, you can see into this room. So it's a little confusing, but it's basically like an interrogation mirror. If you watch like cop shows, the people sitting in the interrogation room, they see a mirror. But the cops on the other side in their little office, they can see into the interrogation room. So it's kind of like that. But this house does have 4 bedrooms. You're going to see me decorate them all right now rather quickly. And that's because they're all very similar. I mean, they all have the same shape, but they all have different beds, which I thought was a little weird. This is the only room, the one I'm doing right now, this is the only one that you don't actually see at all in the movie. They kind of just don't show this one because the 2 characters who live in this one actually get sacrificed first. So that's kind of why I think that they skip over that one. But that is Jess, who is, I can't remember what her archetype is, but I don't know. It's kind of like the nice way of saying she sleeps around. That's what Jess's archetype is. And then there's the jock. That's I can't remember his name, but he's played by Chris Hemsworth, which is Thor, and that's his archetype. And then there's the virgin, which it ends up saving the day. That's one of the archetypes. And then there's the genius. I don't technically think that's what the archetype's name is, but that's kind of like the gist of what his archetype is supposed to be. But now we're going downstairs into the basement. So like I said, the basement is full of a whole bunch of different junk items so that the people who go to the cabin, they can decide for themselves what's going to come back to life to sacrifice them. So I watched this scene like 8 times so I could kind of get it right in terms of what each character starts to kind of play with, because they show each different person playing with a different object to kind of like give you a suspense of which one's going to go first. But in the end, they end up with the Buckner family, and I will show you guys me building that little section in a minute. But right now, I'm just filling up this desk right here. In the movie, it's filled with a whole bunch of different masks, like costume masks and old play masks, but we don't have any of those in The Sims, so I put a couple of jack-o'-lanterns there. And then that also ended up working because I zoomed in on the board of which they can, like, pick their choices. Like, the people, as I said in the beginning, those who are controlling this, they bet on things, and I zoomed in on that board to kind of get an idea for some of the other things that you don't really see them play with, and one of them is a jack-o'-lantern. But over here, this is the Buckner section. So it's, I think her name's Lydia. Lydia Buckner was the youngest, and she had a journal on her vanity, so I went ahead and did that. And then over here I put a conch shell because one of the choices is a merman, and Chris Hemsworth at first is playing with the merman conch shell, so I went ahead and added that. And then one of the other girl, Jess, is playing with a necklace on a wedding dress, but we don't have any wedding dress objects in The Sims, so I went ahead and did that little floral arrangement that you can get from a wedding. And then over here, I placed the Star Wars little, like, Star Wars ball, because one of the objects that one of them ends up playing with is, like, a puzzle box. It's like a mechanical puzzle box, so I decided that I was going to leave that in there. And then I placed a TV off to the side here, because one of the objects that they play with is a projector. We don't have those in The Sims, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to, you know, place the TV to kind of act like it. But then after that, after I get all of the different objects that the characters themselves play with, I just start to throw a whole bunch of random things around, trying to go off of what I said I saw on that bedding board, and then also just a whole bunch of other junk, because the whole basement is filled with a whole bunch of junk. Right now, I'm placing a vampire urn, because one of the things that they can pick is a vampire. I also placed that unicorn picture and this zombie doll here, because those are a couple of the other things that they can pick. But at the very end, I go through and I add some more vents to the rooms just to make it a little bit more cohesive. But besides that, that is it for this build. So I hope you all enjoyed this one. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you all next time. Bye!